Hello and welcome to Right Sports Talk. My name is Zach. Last night was the first round of the 2024 NFL Draft. So I just wanted to sit down and kind of go over the picks and give my thoughts and reactions to each first round pick. So starting off, the first four picks, very much expected. Not a whole lot to talk about there. Not really any surprises. It was the first overall pick. The Chicago Bears selected Caleb Williams, the quarterback out of USC. That was been expected for months now. Just actually happened last night. Number two, the Washington Commanders selected Jayden Daniels, quarterback out of LSU. That was one that it's kind of been speculated for a few weeks, a little bit, that that's where they were going. Earlier in the process, I thought maybe they could go with Drake May, but they wound up going with Jayden Daniels. So then at the third overall pick, the New England Patriots selected Drake May, the quarterback out of North Carolina. Not really a surprise there. I was a little surprised that he fell to number 3. I thought, for a long time that he was going to go number 2 until kind of Jayden Daniels kind of worked his way up into that spot for the Commanders. As a Patriots fan, I'm kind of glad that Drake May fell that far. I will touch a little more of that. Let's touch a little bit more on that on a future video I do about the Patriots offseason and once the draft is finished. At number 4, the Arizona Cardinals selected Marvin Harrison Jr., wide receiver out of Ohio State. Wide receiver is kind of their biggest need, and they addressed it last night with the best wide receiver in the draft class. Arguably the number 1 prospect talent-wise. Then at number 5, the Los Angeles Chargers selected Joe Alt, offensive tackle out of Notre Dame. So the Chargers are a team that a lot of people thought they would go wide receiver because they lost Keenan Allen they traded Keenan Allen, and they released Mike Williams in free agency. So I thought maybe they would go get Malik Nabers or Rome Odunze if they at number 5, but Jim Harbaugh likes to run the ball. He likes very power style offense. He likes to build from the trenches, your defensive line and your offensive line. So there was a couple people thought maybe wide receiver. The fan base wanted wide receiver. A lot of draft experts thought it was going to be an offensive tackle. They just didn't know which one. The thought may be that it was going to be J.C. Latham because he is a right tackle. He's played right tackle in his career. But they wound up going with Joe Alt, not Joe Thomas. Joe Alt, the tackle out of Notre Dame. So the idea probably is they're going to put him on the right side because they have an all-pro and Rashawn Slater on the left side at tackle. So you have 2 bookend tackles that you don't have to worry about your tackle position for the next 8 to 10 years for the Chargers. Next, the New York Giants with the 6th overall pick selected wide receiver Malik Nabers out of LSU. Another pick that people weren't sure where they were going to go. The Giants, really big wide receiver needy team, but there was some speculation that they really liked J.J. McCarthy and would go with him there. But not. They went with Malik Nabers. So now they've got a very talented, explosive wide receiver to put with Darius Slayton, who's a very good receiver, just hasn't been able to be a number 1 receiver for them, and a kind of speedy receiver they got last year in Jalen Hyatt. So kind of with 1 pick, they've kind of bolstered that receiving core pretty well. The 7th overall pick, the Tennessee Titans selected offensive tackle J.C. Latham out of Alabama. This one was a little bit of a surprise to me because I think the best left tackle, pure left tackle, was still available the best available tackle is a pure left tackle in Olu Fashanu, and the Titans' biggest need is left tackle. J.C. Latham, more of a right tackle guy, but they do have Bill Callahan as their offensive line coach, who is one of the best, if not the best, currently coaching in the NFL as an offensive line coach. Could be a very good help in transitioning Latham from right to left if that's what they choose to do. The 8th overall pick, probably the biggest shocker of the top 10, the Atlanta Falcons selected quarterback Michael Penix Jr. out of Washington. So Arizona gave Kirk Cousins a big contract in the offseason. So everybody was thinking, they don't need a quarterback here. They need defense. It's been kind of speculation that, a defender, like they're going to be the team that selected the first defender, or maybe trade down to get some extra draft capital and still get themselves a very good defender. No, they shock everybody and they pick Michael Penix, who is going to have to sit behind Kirk Cousins for a few years. So Michael Penix, I was, the biggest surprise for me up to that point. Nobody really saw that coming. Then the 9th overall pick, the Chicago Bears select wide receiver Rome Odunze out of Washington. Very big-bodied, go up and make contested catches wide receiver. So they got their quarterback number 1 overall and Caleb Williams. They have really been bolstering their offense in the offseason with bringing in Keenan Allen as a wide receiver. They added DJ Moore last year. Now drafting Rome Odunze, they've got 3 very good receivers, and they've still got a very good receiving tight end in Cole Kmet. So they have a very good core of players to help with their rookie quarterback's development in Caleb Williams. The 10th overall pick, the Minnesota Vikings traded up 1 slot with the New York Jets, and the Vikings selected quarterback J.J. McCarthy out of Michigan. J.J. McCarthy was very, very much speculated he would go to Minnesota. There was a lot of talk and whispers and thinking that Minnesota would try to trade up in the top 5 with either the Cardinals or the Chargers so they can solidify getting J.J. McCarthy. Then as things kind of started to fall, they kind of trusted where they were, except they felt maybe there was a smokescreen with the Jets, so they're like, we'll trade up 1 spot with the Jets just to make sure we can get our guy, make sure nobody else tries to leapfrog us that might want a quarterback. They wind up going with J.J. McCarthy, and they've got very good receivers around him, a very good offensive core around him if he starts right away. And with the 11th overall pick, from trading down 1 spot with the Minnesota Vikings, the New York Jets select Olu Fashanu, offensive tackle from Penn State. Offensive tackle was a very big need, a very needed position for the Jets. They did sign Tyron Smith in the offseason, but he's 33 years old and has had some injury concerns. So they have this young guy that can add a lot of depth for them, can work in, maybe they'll find a spot for him on the offensive line. Maybe they'll slide him in at guard and let him play there for a year. Very much needed offensive line help and offensive line depth for that team. Personally, as a Patriots fan, I'm very glad that Rome Odunze didn't fall there. I think if Rome Odunze had fallen there, that the Jets would have instantly picked him. And as a Patriots fan, that's not something I would have wanted to see twice a year, of Garrett Wilson on one side of the field and Rome Odunze on the other. The 12th overall pick, the Denver Broncos selected quarterback Bo Nix from Oregon. Going into the draft, it was known the Denver Broncos needed a quarterback. The thought was maybe they would trade down for later in the first round and, select Bo Nix towards the end of the first round. But once you got 5 quarterbacks in the first 10 picks, you can't really trade down at that point because another needy quarterback team can easily snag him before you have a chance. So Bo Nix was, the 6th quarterback taken in the first round, and they were all taken in the first 12 picks. a lot of offense here. But I think Bo Nix will do well in Denver. I think he'll do well in the Sean Payton system. Bo Nix is a very efficient quarterback. His entire time in college, he never had double-digit interceptions. So, very accurate quarterback. Very efficient. He's not the flashy quarterback that's going to go out and make a bunch of cool-looking plays. But I think he plays well enough to win games. And that's, at the NFL level, all you need to do. With the 13th overall pick, the Vegas Raiders select Brock Bowers, tight end out of Georgia. Brock Bowers, he's going to add a lot of, he's going to probably have a pretty good role in this offense. They could pair him up with their second-round pick last year in Michael Mayer, another very good tight end, and I think he could possibly fit that Hunter Renfrow role, like kind of putting him in the slot, kind of as a receiver, but a much bigger-bodied Hunter Renfrow. I think Brock Bowers is somebody that was a top 5 talent in this draft, but I think because of the fact he plays tight end, and that's not a very highly valued position, and the fact that there was so much other offensive talent to pick from at the top of this draft, that's what caused him to fall to number 13, and the Raiders were able to swoop him up and get a very talented player that can help their team probably right away. With the 14th overall pick, the New Orleans Saints selected Talise Fuaga, offensive lineman out of Oregon State. He played tackle at Oregon State. That might be where the Saints keep him at. The Saints do have a big need at offensive tackle. I think that's a very good pick for them. A pick that can help them right away and help kind of shore up that offensive line for them. With the 15th overall pick, the Indianapolis Colts selected Laiatu Latu, edge rusher out of UCLA. Took 15 picks, but we finally got the first defensive player off the board. It was one of the most talented edge rushers. A lot of people can argue that Latu was the best edge rusher. It was kind of between him, Dallas Turner, and Jared Verse for 1, 2, and 3. And a lot of people have flip-flop, but that's a very good pick for the Indianapolis Colts that can go out and help their defense. With the 16th overall pick, the Seattle Seahawks selected Byron Murphy, defensive tackle out of Texas. And very good interior defensive lineman. Go out and help shore up that defensive line for the Seahawks. The Seahawks already had a very good defense, and this is just adding another piece to really help solidify that defense and make them even better. With the 17th overall pick, the Minnesota Vikings actually traded up from 23, traded with the Jacksonville Jaguars, and the Minnesota Vikings selected Dallas Turner, defensive end out of Alabama, edge rusher out of Alabama. I think they started to see the run on defenders and didn't know if, who would be there for them at 23. So they wanted to make sure they went up and got their guy. And the guy for them was Dallas Turner. They lost Danielle Hunter to Houston in free agency. So this is a pretty big get for them to help that defensive line, outside linebacker, edge rush, to help their pass rush. So very good get for them. With the 18th overall pick, the Cincinnati Bengals selected Amarius Mims, offensive tackle out of Georgia. The Bengals are a team that has needed tackle help. They've addressed it a little bit. They did get Orlando Brown before last season. They brought in Trent Brown this offseason, and now they got Amarius Mims to help shore up that offensive line, add some depth. A guy that can develop and go in if Trent Brown gets injured. So Amarius Mims is 6'8" and 340 pounds. He is not the biggest offensive lineman the Bengals have. So the two guys ahead of him, the other two offensive tackles they have, Orlando Brown is 6'8", 345 pounds. And Trent Brown is 6'8", about 380 pounds. So Amarius Mims is going to walk in and not be the biggest offensive lineman, which I just think is surprising for a human being that big to not be the biggest human being when they walk into the room. But very good pick for the Bengals. very good, very big help for Joe Burrow to hopefully help keep him upright and get the Bengals back into the playoffs. With the 19th overall pick, the Los Angeles Rams with their first round pick since 2016, select Jared Verse, defensive end, Florida State. So they lost a very big piece to their defense when Aaron Donald retired this offseason. I think Jared Verse is not going to replace what Aaron Donald did, but he is a very nice piece to add to that defensive line to kind of help and not replace what Aaron Donald could do, but kind of add to what the rest of the defensive line is already able to do, because it had a very good defensive line group already. So that you lose a little bit from losing Aaron Donald, but you're able to add a little bit back by getting Jared Verse. The 20th overall pick, the Pittsburgh Steelers selected Troy Fontenot, offensive tackle out of Washington. The Steelers had a big need at offensive line. Fontenot did play tackle in college. There thought maybe he could go to guard, but the Steelers could keep him at tackle. They could put him at right tackle, and they could move Broderick Jones, who they drafted in the first round last year, from right tackle to left tackle, which is more of his natural position. So get an offensive tackle to help shore up that line. I think that's a very good pick for the Steelers. Very Steelers pick to get an offensive lineman, and it's a position that they really need. With the 21st overall pick, the Miami Dolphins select Chop Robinson, defensive end out of Penn State. So the Dolphins were in a position where they kind of needed both offensive line and edge rusher. They addressed edge rusher in the first round because they had they had a bunch of injuries last year to their defensive line. They lost Christian Wilkins in free agency. He wasn't an edge rusher, but he was a good pass rusher from the defensive tackle position. But Chop Robinson, very good edge rusher, could come in and help that pass rush, especially if there's still some guys that are out injured, and when the injured guys, if they're able, when they're able to play, that defensive line pass rush will be very dangerous. There are probably some fans very upset because the thought was maybe they would go with Jackson Powers Johnson, the center out of Oregon, because that's another position that they really needed. But they wound up going with Chop Robinson to help out that pass rush. With the 22nd overall pick, the Philadelphia Eagles selected Quinyon Mitchell, corner out of Toledo. The Eagles are a team that needed corner help going into this draft. So Darius Slay is good. Derek Bradbury is pretty good, but they've kind of been had some injury concerns. They are getting up there in age. So the Eagles were able to go out and get themselves a young, very talented corner. Next up with the 23rd overall pick, the Jacksonville Jaguars selected wide receiver Brian Thomas Jr. out of LSU to really shore up that receiving core. So they've now got Christian Kirk to be their number one receiver. They've got Gabe Davis, who's a very explosive big play receiver, but very inconsistent. And they've got Brian Thomas, who can be another very explosive wide receiver to help out that receiving room. So get Trevor Lawrence another offensive weapon to help him out. With the 24th overall pick, the Detroit Lions traded up from 29 with the Dallas Cowboys, and they selected cornerback Terrion Arnold out of Alabama. Lions are another team that had a very big need at corner. So went out and got arguably the second best corner in this draft class. Some people can argue he's the best corner in this draft class to really help out that defense and help out that secondary for them. With the 25th overall pick, the Green Bay Packers selected Jordan Morgan, offensive tackle out of Arizona. a very good offensive tackle. This is actually a guy that I thought could have been there, could have fallen into the second round, into the high 30s. Thought maybe he could have been there for the Patriots at 34. The Green Bay Packers chose to pick him right there. There were some Packers fans that are a little upset with that. They thought maybe they would go Cooper DeJean to help shore up their secondary, maybe go Graham Barton to help the interior of their offensive line. They went with Jordan Morgan, I think another very talented offensive lineman. I'm sure they're going to find a spot for him on that offensive line. With the 26th overall pick, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers select offensive lineman Graham Barton out of Duke. So, the guy that Packers fans wanted goes one pick after them. I think is a very good pick for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Really help the interior of that offensive line, help Baker Mayfield. Baker Mayfield is a little bit of a smaller quarterback. He's got to kind of step up in the pocket to really see downfield. Really step in the middle of the pocket, see downfield. They've got a very good tackle in Tristan Wirfs. So now they're getting a player that can really help the interior of their offensive line. With the 27th overall pick, the Arizona Cardinals select Darius Robinson, defensive lineman out of Missouri. This is a player that can really play really throughout the defensive line. Can be a defensive end. He can be an edge rusher from the defensive tackle position. He can be a regular edge rusher out at defensive end. He's got a lot of versatility, and this is really a spot the Cardinals also needed to address in this draft. Went and were able to get another very big position of need by getting that defensive lineman, pass rusher, and Darius Robinson. With the 28th overall pick, the Kansas City Chiefs traded up with the Buffalo Bills, and with that pick, they selected Xavier Worthy, wide receiver out of Texas. So they just gave the Chiefs went and got Patrick Mahomes, the quarterback with one of the strongest arms in the NFL, and they got him the fastest receiver in the history of the NFL Combine, the fastest player in the history of the NFL Combine. They gave him a very speedy receiver so now they can kind of look to take the top off of the defense this year. It's something they weren't really able to do the past couple years without Tyreek Hill. They were still able to be very successful, and now they have that big playability, the ability to take the top off the defense again with a wide receiver. I think this is a very good pick for the Chiefs. I thought maybe they could have gone also Ladd McConkey as more of a possession style of receiver, but I very much like the big playability of Xavier Worthy, especially pairing him with Patrick Mahomes. With the 29th overall pick, the Dallas Cowboys, after their trade with the Detroit Lions, selected Tyler Guyton, offensive tackle out of Oklahoma. The Cowboys, another team that needed offensive line help, they really needed offensive tackle. So now they can they lost Tyron Smith to free agency. He's also had injury concerns. And now this allows them to keep Tyler Smith in at left guard, who has been a very good left guard for them over the past few years. You don't need to kick him out to tackle. He can stay in at guard. You've now got Tyler Guyton that you can plug in at left tackle and be very helpful for that offensive line and really help shore up that offensive line and give Dak Prescott some protection back there. With the 30th overall pick, the Baltimore Ravens select Nate Wiggins, cornerback out of Clemson. Nate Wiggins, another very good corner. There's a little bit of concerns about durability for him and size, because he's only about 180 pounds. He's very fast, around a 4.27 at the NFL Combine. He also injured his hamstring while running that 40-yard dash, which brings up the durability issues. But he's a very good pass coverage guy. Can play very well. Can play very well for them, and really help out that defense that is still a very good defense. With the 31st overall pick, the San Francisco 49ers selected Ricky Pearsall, wide receiver out of Florida. This is one that I was a little shocked by. Just because we're at the position in the draft. There was still so many good receivers available, receivers that I think are a little better than Ricky Pearsall. You had Ladd McConkey still available, Keon Coleman still available, A.D. Mitchell still available. Xavier Legette was still available at this point, and they went with Ricky Pearsall. I'm not saying that's a bad pick. Ricky Pearsall is very talented, a very, very good wide receiver. I just think there was other receivers that are a little better than him, and I thought Ricky Pearsall was definitely going to fall into the second round. So this is a little bit of shock to me. And then with the 32nd overall pick, the Carolina Panthers traded back into the first round with the Buffalo Bills. So remember, the Panthers did not have a first round pick this year because of the trade they made with Chicago last year for the number 1 pick when they were able to get Bryce Young. So that pick turned into the number 1 pick this year for the Bears. So the Panthers traded from 33 to 32 with the Buffalo Bills. And with that pick, they selected Xavier Legette, wide receiver out of South Carolina. I think this is a very good pick for the Carolina Panthers. The Panthers are a team that needed wide receiver help. So Jonathan Mingo wasn't really it last year as a rookie. Adam Thielen, as good as he is still getting up there in age. So, really like to bring in a younger receiver. And Terrence Marshall was a guy that he's a good receiver, but can't really create a whole lot of separation. So doesn't really get the ball a lot. So Xavier Legette is a player that I really like. When the draft process first started, I thought maybe he would be available in the 3rd round. And then it's like, oh no, maybe, top of the 2nd round. And then as the draft got closer, I saw a lot of people projecting Xavier Legette, late in the 1st round. And that's where we wound up going with Carolina going up 32 and picking him. So Xavier Legette, very good wide receiver. I think will do a lot of help for this Carolina Panthers offense. A few guys that I was surprised made it through the 1st round. Mainly one big one, Ladd McConkey. Also a little surprised Cooper DeJean didn't go. Kool-Aid McKinstry. There's a lot of very talented players still available. And I'm very excited to see how rounds 2 and 3 go after how round 1 went. Let me guys know. You guys let me know what you thought of the 1st round of the NFL draft in the comments. What surprised you, who you were hoping your team would pick, if your team picked who you wanted them to, how you're feeling about teams after the 1st round. Who are you excited to see get picked later in the draft? Who's somebody that you really hope your team picks that's still available? Don't forget to like and subscribe. Until next time, see ya.